Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Socially Desi Show, the podcast that motivates you to live, create, and inspire. If this is your first time here, welcome. On our show, we discuss tips and strategies with our guest speakers on how to tackle problems related to personal growth, mental health, relationships, business and entrepreneurship, and health and fitness. So hit that subscribe button and go check out our website at sociallydesi.com for more of such content. Today, we are interacting with the dynamic chef duo, Madhav and Varun. They have been the driving force behind Miguels Cocktails, located in Bento Miguel, a heritage building in the heart of Panjim, Goa. Drawing upon the rich history and culture of this celebrated neighborhood, Miguels is an art deco bar that serves as a friendly watering hole for both the residents of Panjim and the wandering visitors. So, hello, Varun and Madhav. Welcome to the show.
Hi guys, hello.
Hi. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all mine, Madhav and Varun. Thank you so much for doing this with the Socially Desi Show. And before we even begin today's episode, there has been a really interesting journey regarding how you guys met and how the whole Miguel story started. So, Madhav, I would like to start this with you. How did you guys meet?
So Varun and I met in college in this small village in Switzerland called Le Bouffre. That's where our culinary college was, called Cesar's Colleges, Culinary Arts Academy in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And both of us were roommates. That's how we met.
Nice.
The funny part is in our first 2-3 months when we were roommates, we didn't really like each other that much. But we actually started liking each other, our affection for each other and respect for each other as chefs grew as we started working in the kitchen in college.
Mm-hmm.
Because both of us have a very different personality, but both of us work very well as a yin and yang, we would say, in the kitchen. And from working in college together, then towards the end of our college, when both of us were almost about to graduate, we were both in Paris, sitting under the Eiffel Tower. And we were just like, maybe inshallah in the next 5 years or 10 years, we might work together, open a restaurant together. And the funny part is we became roommates on the 5th of October.
4th.
Sorry.
Unbelievable.
sorry. 4th of October. 4th of October, we became roommates. 5th of October, we were in Paris.
Okay.
Right?
No,
5th of October.
So 4th of October is when we first met. 5th of October is when college actually started.
Yes.
6th of October, 3 years later, we were under the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, 6th of October, we were under the Eiffel Tower talking about how we might just work together. And then literally 1 year after, on the 7th of October, we were moving to Goa to open Miguel's.
Wow.
So it's 4, 5, 6,
But
7.
Varun,
Yes.
Madhav skipped the whole year. Can you tell me something a bit about what happened during that 1 year?
Oh, so during the 1 year between us talking about the Eiffel Tower and the restaurant and us moving to Goa.
Yeah.
So short after that, I had moved back to Dubai because I found a job at one of the greatest chefs in the world. But then I was also mentally in a place where I did not want to be in Dubai and I wanted to run away from everything. So when I was in Jaipur for my Chachi's 50th birthday, I applied to 11 Madison Park in New York. And a year earlier, I had applied in 2019 and I had applied in 2018. Mm-hmm. And in 2017, they won the world's best restaurant. Mm-hmm. And I applied to them, I was like, okay, what's the harm? Kya hoga? I applied and they replied back a week later saying, we'd like for you to come to a stage. And I told my mom and dad and they were like, yeah, go. So I immediately went back to Dubai, got my visit visa for the US, went to New York. I didn't get that job. Got a job at another sister restaurant of 11 Madison Park. And then I was in New York. And as soon as I moved to New York in January 2019. And about 4 months later, Madhav messaged me. Because of the time difference, I was asleep at the time. But he messaged me 4 months later saying, yo, I'm opening a restaurant, come help. I was like, and then I woke up the next morning, seeing the message, and I replied, "Ha, okay, chal, let me know when to come." And I didn't really have to think about it, right? Because my visa was limited in the US. I didn't really want to move back to Dubai. I
Okay.
wasn't in a mental space to figure out applying for Australia or Canada because it's a very lengthy process, and you're really starting from zero, right?
I think this is the like
Right.
quickest conversation that I've ever had. Like, to like hire someone or like to just get somebody on
Yeah,
board. Like, I'm opening a restaurant. I want you to be my sous chef. Or like, okay, he like, when should I come? I like, just come in September. We'll chill for a month. We go to Goa. He like, haha, sure. I just suddenly like he was here. It was
Wow.
amazing.
it was really
Wow.
was a no brainer because at the end of the day, I realized that I was going to open up a restaurant at 23. Whatever the other reasons may be, not a lot of people get to open up a restaurant at 23, doing the
Yep.
food
Yep.
that you want to do. Whether or not
Yeah.
it's a city or country you want to live in, that was really second or third hand. That didn't really matter. It was at
Yeah.
that point being so fresh in the industry and realizing that, oh, okay, can I do this? I knew I couldn't, but it wasn't whether or not could I want to. I wanted to because I was like, okay, mera khana hai. And to
Yeah.
this day, the dishes that I created for Miguel is still on the menu, and I hope to God it never goes away
No,
because
it'll
I
always
love
be
those
there.
dishes.
They'll
I
always be
love
there.
those dishes. Yeah.
And like even like during like when we were also setting up like buying kitchen equipment, setting up Miguel, like will we be able to do this? Like every day we would ask each other like how are we
Yeah.
going to do this? And initially it was just Varun and I. It was just the two of us in the kitchen. There was no one else. The whole
Correct.
kitchen team
Correct.
was Varun and I. And we both like we would question ourselves also, but it was both of us did push each other enough to get things done. And I mean
True.
I mean that was a risk worth taking, and we are where we are now because of the days we pushed each other.
And yeah, I still remember when Madhav mentioned we were living for the month in Delhi before we went to Goa. I mean, there were a few times where we used to go out and then used to come back home and it just hit me. We're like, oh, dude, we're opening up a restaurant, and I had to start crying. I'm like, oh, dude, we're opening up a restaurant. Can we do this? Can we do this? And even in
Yeah,
Goa, like the first couple of weeks that Miguel had opened, I used to go to bed crying every night, not because it was like I was sad or anything, because it was just so emotionally and physically exhausting. Our day just used to start at like 8 and at midnight. But even then, it didn't stop, right? Because you're still
yeah,
thinking about the entire day that you just went and what went wrong. Because like, even the two dishes that I mentioned earlier, the chorizo and the beef, what they're now versus what they were in our first couple
yeah,
of weeks of serving are completely different. And that can go for all of the dishes on the menu. None
yeah.
of the
True.
dishes are really the same because every day after service you go home, you're like, okay, ye change karna hai, ye change karna hai.
This
And
constant
so like
development.
of you never let it be okay, because as soon as you realize that
Right.
it's okay, that's where you've messed up. You don't get perfection. The closest thing you
True.
can do is do what you can to get there. But will you ever get there? No, because perfection doesn't exist. It's what you perceive as perfection, right?
Exactly,
And for
exactly.
me
True.
right now, I think the beef dish is on the menu is as perfect as that dish can be, because
Yeah.
I'm not there. Whether or not the kitchen does any changes to it, if you could add some damn truffles and foie gras, I think that dish would be incredible. But at the price point Miguel is giving it, I think that dish is. I
Yeah.
really miss cooking that dish. I really miss making that
Yeah.
pasta, man.
One thing like Varun and I always did was that like as he just said, like the perfection doesn't exist, but every day like
Yep.
every time a customer would say something to us or a client would tell us something, we would always take it into consideration, and like on a daily basis we would try to improve everything as much as we can, which was a very
True.
important factor at Miguel's, because essentially Miguel's is a place where the chefs are directly interacting with the guests because it's an open kitchen. The guests are sitting
Right.
right in
Right.
front of us. So like they're looking at us, how we're plating, how we're cooking. So we
Yep.
have to always be clean and organized and at the same time interact with the guests. So their input matters a lot to us. And every day we would reevaluate what we've done, what we've made, what we've cooked, and how it can be better or even more organized the next day.
True, true. And I think, this is the reason why that this episode is going to be fire, because we have two young entrepreneurs, chef, who at the age of 23, started their own thing. And like, Varun rightly said that you couldn't have imagined that right after college, you would be opening your own thing. You must have thought that, yeah, I'll work under some chef, I'll hone my skills more, and then maybe, 5 years down the line, I'll do something. But doing that, jumping directly into the business world, understanding how you build something from the grounds up. That is something which this episode really wants to focus on and showcase. So, guys, jumping to the meat of the episode. There's always an impact that the region has on the taste of a restaurant, right? And this is quite well presented with Miguel's as well. So would you like to tell us what sort of strategies generally young entrepreneurs can really adopt in order to ensure that there's a surreal experience of the region's taste in their menu offering?
Varun, would you like me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
So, I mean, especially for restaurants or for the F&B industry, the region that you are in matters a lot, because obviously the produce in the region is going to highlight the food that you're cooking at, right? But at the same time, like for Miguel's, for example, the restaurant is located in the dead center of Fontainas in Panjim. Fontainas is the main Latin Quarters area. So Miguel's is in a building which has a Portuguese Goan architecture outlook to it. And the interiors of the place also has been given a 1950s, 60s Gatsby art-deco kind of a vibe. But even before the construction started, Varun and I, for the first 6 to 8 months when we were in Goa, we were doing crazy amounts of R&D every day. We would drive 1 or 2 hours down to South Goa, go to a farm research facility and see what produce is grown, how is it grown. We would go to local restaurants and to small families and see how they cook at home. And just because technically speaking, every region has its own concept of hospitality. Whether it's in the house or in a hotel, and 5-star hotels do try to take small aspects of it, but it's not as personalized. So we took small ideas and concepts, whether it's from food or produce or also hospitality that exists in Goa, and try to kind of modernize it and make it more contemporary and make it made it our own style of hospitality per se. And so when we started doing the R&D and once we started cooking, I think Varun and I initially were like, we should do like modern Goan food. And which wasn't the smartest thing to do, because if you're in dead center Panjim and there are so many locals, and if I try to do something with the food that they've been eating for centuries, and they'll be like, ye kya bana diya tumne? So we had to slightly change our kind of outlook to it. And then what we decided to do was that what is now called intuitive cuisine is like, we need to take our best skill set and adapt it to what we have around us. So we are already using the produce that we have in Goa. We are using our skill set that we've learned from the different restaurants and from the college that we have learned in and everything, and applied that in our own applied our mental process to it. And then what we decided to do was to have an open kitchen so that we could interact with all the guests that will come, so we can give them a story behind every dish and they can also see how everything is made. So it had a very contemporary approach to it per se. Varun, is there something you would like to add to this?
Sure, always. It's your cuisine is also determined definitely by the place you are, because my kind of food, I would love to do a prefix menu of like 8 courses and charge you an X amount, and get an ingredient from France and the US and get the best of the truffles and chickens and all that. But will it work in a place like God? It won't, because that's not the kind of clientele you will have. That's not the kind of people. That's not the vibe. That's not the kind of food that they enjoy eating. So you also got to understand it from a perspective of what the people like, because at the end of the day, they're the one paying your bill, right? And a lot of people, go on the fact that the customer's always right. The customer's always. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but that's not true. But we still let it slide, because at the end of the day, it is a business, right? Money needs to come in, and the only way money comes in is by customers. And you also got to understand where you're at in terms of location. Like if you were in Bombay, you could definitely open a super fancy place and it would work. But if in Goa, it wouldn't work. Like in Dubai,
true.
Both of them would work, because you have both of the clientele, you have those mindsets. And so, people got to really understand that, okay, you want to do something, but it's also parallelly determined on where you are at. So, location is key, right? So it's all about location. Location really chooses, the kind of food that you're serving. Now, had Miguel's been in the north, the food would have been completely different.
Yeah, I mean, just to give a perspective, North Goa is like, if anybody comes to Goa, they generally live in North Goa. They go to the usual suspects is Anjuna, Baga, Kalangut, Kandulim, Bagator, where all the parties happen, where all the places are.
Yep.
Right, but all these places are also, first of all, they're seasonal. All these places are shut during the monsoons, and also it has a completely different way or perspective towards Goa, which sadly majority of the country has. There is a lot more to Goa that most of the people, I would say 80% of the people who come to Goa do not look at, including Panjim, South Goa, the history and heritage of Goa, the forests, the produce. While talking about locality and produce, Varun and I discovered this beautiful mushroom that grows called ulmi mushroom. Ulmi mushroom grows only for a month or two during the peak rains in monsoons in Goa. And it basically, the mushroom has a symbiotic relationship with the termite fields and the trees and the insects that grow around it. So you can only harvest it for about a month when it's raining, and it tastes beautiful. And there are these local aunties sitting like on the roadsides, and they'll be selling it. And it's like, you get like 500 grams or for like 800 or 1,000 rupees. It's pretty expensive.
Okay.
But the flavor profile of it is amazing. And that's what every day we were just discovering so many things while living in Panjim. And plus, Panjim is a living and breathing city. It's not just a party place, unlike other places. So like the clientele also that we were getting, there were people from Bombay, from Delhi, or like even from Goa, restaurateurs or like foodies who have been living in Goa for a while, and most of that kind of people live on this side of Goa. Because obviously, once you're living in Goa, you're not partying all the time. You have a life and you have business to run. So we started interacting with those people, and they started understanding the food that we were doing. And at the same time, every day Varun and I would wake up around 7:30, 8 o'clock. We would go to the local mandi, buy our own sabji, buy our own fish, buy our own beef or chicken and eggs, and take it to the restaurant, process it, cook it, and then do service as well. And it really like humbled us in terms of like just trying to cook with like basic ingredients every day, instead of just using fancy ingredients and like just because and if you give somebody caviar, you just have to put it on a plate with other fancy ingredients. But what Varun and I were doing was trying to find different cuts of meat, like Varun's gnocchi dish, which is so famous. It's still one of our best sellers. We found the randomest cut of the cow one day at a butcher. It's the hump of the cow, and it's very rarely used because it's such a tough piece of meat. And then we slow cooked it for 7 to 8 hours. That would completely render all its fat and veins in it. That it melts in your mouth when you eat it. But that was a discovery we made ourselves because we decided to just we just threw ourselves in the deep end and then saw where it takes us.
True. That's really interesting. And I think, that also points out to another real topic, which is around curating the right kind of menu for your restaurant. So even before I get into this question, let's get to know both of you a bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Varun first. Okay. So Varun, you need to tell me out of the entire menu, I know you guys love each and every dish on the menu, but out of the entire menu, Varun, which one is Madhav's favorite dish?
Can I get two? One sweet, one savory?
No. You get only one, and then Madhav needs to confirm whether that's the one or not.
Chorizo. It's got to be the chorizo,
Chorizo, 100%.
Chorizo, dude. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, my. Because our butcher, our chorizo supplier is an incredible Goan farmer, and he makes his own chorizo at home and he smokes it himself, and it's a little expensive, but
it's about the most balanced.
It's so yum.
Like, the best thing about that chorizo is like, I mean, you, throughout Goa, wherever you go, you'll find chorizo. You'll find aunties that make chorizo, but some will be too spicy, some will be too smoky, some will be too tangy, too much vinegar. This guy's chorizo was perfect, right amount of fat, right amount of spice, and Chef Varun being the creator of this dish balanced it out even more. So like it's perfect. That dish is a perfectly balanced chorizo dish, and I make this bread with it called a pav brioche. A brioche is a bread which has eggs, milk, lots of butter inside. So it's a very rich bread. And pav is obviously pav is a local Goan bread, or you also get it in Maharashtra as well. So we took both the recipes, and it if the French and a Goan had a baby, it'll be called a pav brioche. And
Wonderful.
that dish was perfect. It feeds the soul.
Wow, lovely.
Yeah.
So next, whenever I'm in Goa, I'm gonna have that dish for sure.
100%.
So now, Madhav, it's your turn.
Oh, one dish, right?
Yep.
It's Seradura. Any day.
Yeah, bro. Oh man. Every time, we used to make the Seradura because we have to do it in large batches. Every time I used to take like half a kilo home because leftover because we couldn't fill up all the molds. So Madhav used to keep a little half kilo stash for me in the fridge, so it sets with the gelatin. I used to take it home and eat it over the next 4 days.
If I was ever like not good in the kitchen and like Varun was angry at me, I would just make some extra Seradura.
I'd make up for some. And I used to call it quality control because they're like, bro, why are you eating half a kilo? I was like, quality control. You gotta make sure the product's right, man.
Yeah.
So these two dishes are truly different from each other, right?
Seradura is a dessert. Seradura essentially is basically, it was a post-war dessert. It's also sold in Portugal as well.
Okay.
But once the second industrial revolution started, a lot of canning and canned products and whipped cream and all that stuff started. Mary biscuits, all this stuff came then. So Seradura initially was a dessert that could be easily made in any household without having to do too much. So the traditional recipe is just whipped cream, powdered Mary biscuit, and milkmaid. And for us Indian kids, also the 90s kids, we've all made these biscuits, powdered Mary biscuit and milkmaid cold cookies when we were kids. So it till a certain extent that when you eat a Seradura, it reminds you of your childhood also. So we just did a fancier version of it to make it more nuttier and better. We add brown butter in it. We make a dolce de leche, which is caramelized milk, and we set the Seradura like a panna cotta, and we like freeze Mary biscuit and brown butter and shave it on top. But yeah, it's there's something beautiful about that dessert.
True. And this is, what will lead to my next question, because you both have a very different taste, right?
Yes.
And we spoke about that at the start of the episode also, that you have a very different taste, you have a very different style of cooking. So how does one menu card gets curated for a restaurant? So what sort of tips and strategies would you like to share with our audience today so that they can create that perfect menu card for their restaurant?
Ideally, क्या कहते हैं, first of all, like whatever menu you make, if you're looking at a business aspect of it, the first rule that Varun and I also established was that if you're selling a dish for 100 rupees, the food cost of it in a fine restaurant should be 25 to 30 rupees. That should be the food cost. So you're making 70 rupees out of the 100. In a smaller restaurant like a cafe or something simpler, your food cost should not go beyond 15 to 18 rupees for sure. So keeping that in mind, you start creating your dishes. And I mean, while making a recipe card or while making a menu, the season comes into hand. Whatever produce you have access to in your 50 kilometer radius comes into hand. And then, what else? Varun, anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, it also depends on what you feel like you want to serve to the customers, because at one point that definitely comes down to play. So when we were making the menu for Miguels, we sat down and we figured out what kind of dishes we wanted to do, in the sense of what proteins we wanted to do, what desserts we wanted to do, how many items we wanted to do. Because whenever you go to Miguel's and you see the restaurant, you see the kitchen, it's quite small. Like
it's a very small. It's apparently the smallest kitchen in Goa.
It's a very tight space. Yeah. It's a tight space. Like my bathroom at home is bigger than the kitchen at Miguel's, right? So if that tells you anything on how small the kitchen is, because 3 people is too many people, and so it's a real tight space. So you got to take the space into your restaurant, your kitchen space into consideration, your staff skills into consideration. Even though that's much later, you still got to think about it a little bit. Like if you want to do table side service and this or that,
the whole logistics of it.
Right. And more than anything, you got to be true to yourself, because you can do all the fancy, trendy food in the world, but at the end of the day, if you're not cooking food true to yourself, food that you're happy eating, because if you're not going to eat your food, don't cook it.
Yeah.
Because if you yourself ain't going to eat it, banakuro.
Yeah. True.
And I love eating chorizo, I love eating potatoes, and I love eating onions. So I put all of the 3 elements into one dish, and now it's a chorizo dish. So you gotta understand. Also, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. If you want to overcomplicate it, time will come. There's no, especially if you're starting out. Keep it simple. Keep it fresh. Keep it light. Make sure the flavor is staying true to yourself. And so when you do the menu, right, you gotta. So let's say for starters, you have a few proteins you want to use. For the main, you have a few proteins you want to use. And for the dessert, you want to do a chocolate base, a cream base, and a cake base, for example, right? So for the starters, we wanted to do pork, fish, and then a few veg and a salad. For the main, we want to do chicken, fish, and beef, right? Pork, we still haven't gone there because we already have pork in the starter. And for the dessert, we want to do something creamy, something chocolate. We have both of them in it, right? And so from that little
basic
template,
construct, you move on from there. Then you add more factors to it.
And so what flavors you want to do. So with each dish, so like with the beef, I'll give you the beef example because I've worked with that the most. So with the beef, it's a super rich, hearty, like 8-hour braised beef. So I wanted to do something nice and a little light. So I did some gnocchi with a carrot sauce. It's a little sweet. It's a little like the gnocchi just melts in your mouth. But then the beef, even though it's braised, it's still got a crust on it because it's seared. So you get that bite from the beef, the meltiness from your gnocchi, and then you get a little acidity and bite from the pickles. And then you have your beef sauce at the end. So, it's not just like each dish has got to be thoughtful. There's got to be a reason to why you're adding
so you need to
something
have
a
like
plate.
some components on every dish, right? Like so you need to have the right flavor profiles in a dish, and then you need to have the right textures in the dish as well. So if you need to have the crunch, you need to have the bite, you need to have the smoothness or the creaminess, right? If something is too overpowering, it means either texture wise or flavor wise. Either something can be too overpowering flavor wise, means like it's too strong or too pungent or too sweet or too bitter. To balance that off, you add more components, but at the same time, so like as Varun said, like you need to keep it simple, silly, right? But like the thing now, as I said, Varun and I work like yin and yang. I overthink and Varun simplifies things. So generally what I do is I would like, for example, let's take apples, right? So I will make the center of the dish an apple, and then I would mind map it, like what works with apples. With apples, cinnamon works, right? Cinnamon works with cinnamon and apple. Rum works. Rum, cinnamon, and apple is a classic combination. What works with all 4 of them? Almonds. Then you can keep adding layers to it, and once you have the whole mind map conceptualization of different flavors and different ingredients, then you add the cooking methods to them, and then you technically created your own dish. So,
wonderful.
Yeah, that's kind of the thought process that both of us go through on a daily basis.
No, that is absolutely phenomenal, and like we discussed earlier, also it's really important that you work together as a team and you understand each other's strengths and you play on that. So, what would be your let's say tip or a recommendation to young entrepreneurs who are just entering into the F&B space, or maybe they want to start their own thing? Do you feel they should go for a specialty kind of a menu, or should they go general and then maybe deep dive slowly? What would be your recommendation?
So, I mean, Anurag, it first of all, it depends on the business plan that you would create and the target market that you will approach. But ideally, I would say that this is the right time to do different menus and different styles of food, because there are so many new ventures opened within the industry. in Goa itself, there are resorts that are based on yoga and Ayurveda. So there are people working on menus based on Ayurvedic medicine and herbs that can go into that. There are chefs all over the world that are trying to find ingredients and produce that is not found,
Right.
like the generalized produce that we buy in the vegetable market.
Yep.
The people are foraging. There are a lot of ways to go about it, but 100% it depends on the business plan that you have and how you want to go about it. If you have the right target market, and also it depends on the research that you've done. Also, if you want to really do different kind of food, you should try it. You should do a trial run. You should do some surveys try and do the tasting menu with a few people, see what the feedback you get, work on it. Because in the F&B industry, you're working on food and the cocktails or your plan every day. You're evolving every day.
Right.
So
Right.
there's never one constant concept that you'll have. And even if you do have that, you will probably have to change it in some time, because your regulars will all be like, we've tried everything that you've made. Let's try something new.
True. That's absolutely correct, Madhav. And Varun, what would be your closing thoughts and tips for entrepreneurs who are just starting off in the industry? Maybe they are starting on their own, or they're working under some chef. What would be your advice to them?
Be wary of you need to wholeheartedly understand where your finance is coming from. Madhav and I were super lucky enough to find partners who invested in the restaurant and invested in this idea wholeheartedly without doubting us or asking us, ye kyun, wo kyun, ye mehanga hai, wo mehanga hai. But not everybody's like this. I'm currently working with partners who are on the dot about every single rupee and dirham that's going into the business, right?
Right.
And so you just and that's not to say that you should shy away from what you want to do. You just got to be aware of that. Is it your money or is it somebody else's money? And then take that as a slight indication of where to go. Now, I'm not saying that you don't go all out. Go all out, but that doesn't mean you need to start serving super expensive things now. You can always start small and grow. Every restaurant starts small. Every restaurant grows. So, and when it's your money, you have that fear of, what if I do something wrong? But when it's someone else's money, you're like, okay, mere paise nahi, it's fine. That's not the way to go about it. Even if it's somebody else's money, you got to think about it as it's your own money, because you're still investing. Whether it's not money, it's still time, right? And in today's day, time is money. Time is everything, right? Because it's the one thing we can't get back in life. Money comes and goes. Time is, once you're done being 23, you're done. You're not getting it back. And so you got to understand that even though it's somebody else's money and they might quote unquote own it, you got to genuinely, and excuse my French, you genuinely got to give a shit about the place you're working with, the food that you're serving, your clients, your customers, your staff. You want to build a restaurant. Okay, great. Everyone does. Everyone who has money these days wants to open up a restaurant. But people got to understand that restaurants not just the food. It's a community. It's an environment. It's where people come to spend their time, their money, come for occasions. We've had people celebrate their 50th, 60th, their wedding anniversaries. Incredible days in their life and celebrations.
It's a place where all social activities happen. Exactly.
And do you plan for it to happen? No, but it happens because of the environment you've created. And you want to focus on good food and consistently serving what you want. Now, could I easily charge you $1,000 for putting caviar and foie gras and truffle? 100%. But can I do it every day at the same quality? Probably not, because you are at the end of the day a human. You only have a certain capacity before you reach that limit, and then you got to take a break from it. So if you're starting small, I always recommend start small, because if you start small, you can go big. But if you've gone big, you can't really size down. Start small, be consistent, know what you're doing, be true to yourself, take it a day at a time. Don't be too harsh. Take criticism, yes, but you don't have to listen to everything they say. Because at the end of the day, you can't make everyone happy. You can't. Exactly. And so you need to understand that everyone has a different palate. Everyone's got a different sense of understanding food. Like I come from a family where my brother will go out and spend $1,000 on food, but then my Tauji is like, what's the point? It's going to come out of my system in 24 hours. So you got to understand that in the world, you've got so many kinds of different people.
Yeah.
You got to be where you're comfortable with in terms of the restaurant, the food, the service style. And no one's stopping you from in a year or so later, when the restaurant gets successful and, you've made money, and instead of taking that money and spending it on whatever you want, reinvest it into the business. And if you don't want to reinvest the entire thing, take 50% of the money you've made and reinvest into that. Now, whether it be kitchen equipment or seats or uniform or whatever it may be, or decor or lighting or posters, or it might be anything, or ingredients, but you always gotta.
There's another thing. I mean, like as Varun said, like if you open a place, or you're planning to open a place, or like even if you like your place is up and running and is doing really well, doesn't mean that's it. That's not the ending point. If you've perfected something, or like you've reached that level, means that you've kind of everything that you've learned, you applied your skill and you've gotten there. But it basically also means that it's time to learn more, because with a lot of chefs and with a lot of people, what happens is कि एक बार restaurant खोल दिया, खाना अच्छा चल रहा है, अब मेरे को सब कुछ आता है, मेरा जगह चल रहा है. They won't want to step down or go and work again as an intern somewhere else, or go abroad and like try to get back more information, learn more. Because like being a chef or studying culinary arts is like studying medicine. It's never ending. There's so many ingredients, there's so many methods of cooking, there's so many cuisines, there's so much to learn and read and write and research on, that it's never ending. So like just don't stop learning and like researching, and like don't build an ego where you think that you know everything. Just remember the fact that even after you created something successful, there's a lot more that you can continue to do and learn.
So true. I mean, these are words of wisdom, and I'm sure you guys you'll make proud of the kind of food that you make, your customers, your staff, and everybody who tastes your dishes. So guys, if you are in Goa this fall, don't forget to visit Miguels. We'll put the links in the show notes below, also the address, so you can go and check them out. And do tell them, if you heard us on the Socially Desi show and you went there, do tell Madhav he's gonna be there, and I'm sure that will bring a smile on his face and our faces as well.
100%.
So with that, Madhav and Varun, thank you so much for being on the show. I've enjoyed this episode, and I'm hungry. I don't know, for some reason my stomach is saying, boss, eat something now. Just made you hungry.
Thank you, Anurag. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great. See you soon.
Wonderful. Yeah,
Thank you.
Soon.
Hope to see you guys in Dubai very soon. I wish I could be there feeding you the beef and chorizo. But
yeah. Also, we have live music on Thursday nights at Miguel. So if Anurag, you ever come down, come for a music night. We'll eat and drink together.
For sure. I'm definitely planning to be in Goa, but not sure when. But let's see. Hope that day comes soon. So that wraps it up for today, folks. If you liked the episode, give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and let's go viral. Remember, our weekly podcast features episodes on personal growth, mental health, relationships, business and entrepreneurship, and health and fitness. We would love to have Madhav and Varun, the dynamic chef duo, on our show again in the future to talk more about the lovely dishes and make us hungry again. So if you haven't yet done so, hit that subscribe button and go check out our website at sociallydesi.com. And as always, before I sign off, remember, life is black and white and everything in between.